Right. Thank you. Brother Pigeon, over to you. Thanks.
Yeah, greetings. Greetings to all of you, comrades. This is Comrade Odimengo from Kenya, speaking from a new device for our class, the Consciencism Study Group. Thank you, first of all, for all members who have made this successful. I hope now I'll be able to do what you need to do maximally. So I think that's the spirit of Harambe we were talking last week. So thank you very much for all members who actually donated both for our laptops and even for our Zoom subscriptions. So thank you very much. Now, having said that, permit me to recognize the presence of those who are with us here. Brother Kwame from Kwame Nkrumah Trust, with the account Kwame Nkrumah Trust, that's Brother Kwame, our chair. We have Sister Ida. We have Sister Portia. We have Brother Horus, Brother Ifo, Sister Njideka. Sister Njideka, welcome. It's been a while. And we have Brother Simon from One Map Africa. We have Sir Windhoek, and then we have Sister Tapuwa. Comrades, feel most welcome, feel more appreciated, and thank you for spending time, resources, and all that you put in order for us to have this class running for the last almost now 2 years for the Saturday Unification Session. Now, today we'll be discussing youth and education and future leadership. Brother Kwame will be doing the presentation, and maybe I'll also speak up briefly. But before we do that, we'll allow Sister Portia to give us maybe in 10 minutes or 15 maximum, the geopolitical analysis from her side. So welcome, Sister Portia, please.
Thank you. I'm going to have my camera on just for a bit so you can see me as a real person. Hello, everybody. And now I'll turn off my camera so that I can do the geopolitical analysis. Okay, thank you. Okay, today I want to look at something that caught my eye in the news, and I want to read from 2 articles. Before I do that, I do want to say this week I focus more on the disasters that are happening, so the natural disasters that occur or public health crises that occur. And I did this after seeing this article. It's 2 articles I want to read. And I just said, I think this is important. So I'm trying, as I said, I do have my biases, but what I try to do is look at this as less biased as possible. So here are some of the headlines in that regard. So in West Africa, coastal cities they're alleging are not sinking by accident. I don't know if you've heard about the flooding that has happened in parts of West Africa. And I will move to North America because there's something that also happened in Canada. And I'll just give that point. So also there is now talk again in the news, and that source about the coastal cities in West Africa is African Business. The source for what's happening in Canada is CBS News, which is a North American news agency out of the United States of America. And then The Guardian is saying that global heating has supercharged those floods in West Africa that's displacing thousands. These are just the headlines. And then Al Jazeera says that El Nino, and this is 4 days ago, threatens to unleash floods across East Africa and also Asia. So now let me stop and go to the articles due to time of what I wanted to read. So I believe that all here on this call is aware of what is happening with this Ebola virus outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo and neighboring Uganda. I'm reading from the University of Oxford, July 13th, 2026. Even though this is this arguably we can say is, because today is 12, 14, 15, 16, 17. Yeah, it was last week. I still want to read it for this week. So they say the world, and I won't read all of the article. They say, quote, world's first phase 1 of the Bundibugyo Ebola virus vaccine trial launched by Oxford Vaccine Group. This is what they're saying. And I continue reading from the same article. It said, conducted in Oxford, the trial will assess the safety and immune response of the capital C, lowercase h, capital A, lowercase d, capital O, lowercase x1, capitals all the way through BDBV vaccine in 50 healthy adults aged 18 to 55 years. Recruitment of volunteers into the study is now underway, where they will then attend screening visits in the coming weeks and follow regulatory review for trial commencement. Participants will then be vaccinated and attend follow-up visits in Oxford. The work is supported, and I'm jumping in the article. This work is supported by funding from the Coalition of Epidemic Preparedness Innovations to the University of Oxford, and all capitals S2, as part of a US $0.86 million program to advance the development of Bundibugyo vaccines. The program builds on SIPA's strategic partnership with the University of Oxford and the S2's participation in SIPA's vaccine manufacturing facility network. Subject to regulatory approval, preparations are also underway for further clinical studies with their partners, including those of the Medical Research Council, Uganda Virus Research Institute, and London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, Uganda Research Institute. The article then goes on to say that the deadly Bundibugyo epidemic is already the third largest Ebola outbreak on record, and infectious numbers are continuing to rise. The University of Oxford works to progress their Bundibugyo vaccine candidate ready to enter phase 1 trials in a matter of weeks is a pivotal milestone in the response effort. If phase 1 trials are successful, CEPI, and remember CEPI is, let me give you their full name again, is the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovation. So if phase 1 trials are successful, CEPI anticipates working with the University of Oxford and S2 to support late-stage trials to generate data for emergency use authorization or licensure. Okay, let me leave that article and I'll put this in the chat, and then let me go now to this other article that came out in March. Sources PBS News, which is also based in North America and the United States of America, Oxford in England, in Europe. What we know about the new cicada COVID-19 variant. A new variant of COVID-19, a new variant of COVID-19 is buzzing. Its official name is capital B, capital A.3.2, but it's earned the nickname cicada because connected to the insect's pattern, it first appeared back in 2024, went dormant for a while, and resurfaced in the United States of America in 2025. Evidence so far shows it's responsible for only a few United States of America cases, but it recently gained traction in Europe, leaving experts on alert for similar trends in North America. Why is it making news? And then I'll close off. The variant was first identified in South Africa in November 2024 and detected in the United States of America in one traveler 7 months later in June 2025. It was spotted in the United States of America. It wasn't spotted in the United States of America until late December and early January. They don't put a year. The public health experts use various methods of surveillance tracking, and then they go on. Yet they say this, still, capital B, capital A, .3.2 is currently a minority strain based on the most recent data available from the Centers for Disease Control. It's hard to know, they say, if it's worse than the other current variants. And then they go on to say it's not clear when, if ever, this strain will become more prevalent in the United States of America. And that's where I want to stop. What's my analysis? My analysis is, as a non-public health official, as a human rights defender, and I didn't read you that first article I read. I didn't read you that none of the manufacturing of that vaccine that they're getting ready to roll out for Ebola, none of it is produced in Africa. I'll show you, I'll send you the article, but it's no one's producing in Africa. And I know there can be some pushback on that again. What I'm trying to say in my nascent analysis is, when I talk about situations where, and I'll do further points next week about how insidious racial capitalism is if we go back into the historical context of Black people and dealing with vaccines or health matters, there is a cautioning of the people who try to, let's say, help Black people. And so when I see these two articles, I do, as a non-public health professional, I get concerned. I don't see it being the best interest of Africa, which leads me now to my next point. Until we are able to control our health, be able to protect our citizens again, because we did used to do it. But until we do that again, I remain cautious about any type of vaccine coming into a community when it is external to that community, particularly around Black people. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Portia, for that. Anybody who has any maybe question, reaction to what Sister Portia has shared, maybe in 2 minutes? Anybody?
Yes. My question is the same as every Saturday, which is, so what does this geopolitical analysis tell us about where Africa is at the moment? Does it tell us that we are moving forward in all the three areas of liberation, unification, development? Are we standing still, or is it taking us backwards? So in my mind, those will be the three key questions we must always answer when we do geopolitical analysis. Is Africa moving forward? Is it moving backwards, or is it still standing still? Yeah, thank you.
That's a good question. And Brother Kwame, thank you for always asking that question. My continued answer, and then you can always push back on me, not because we're trying to argue, but it's just good to have debate. It's good to evidence or argue what we're saying, because we have to do that in other circles. So to me, it shows that Africa is in a place of where oppressive systems want it. It doesn't imply that we are going to stay in this position. It just, when I see this, it's no different than when I saw arguably when the AIDS crisis happened on the continent. Not, of course, that AIDS was from Africa, even though I know what some people have said. I just have a different non-medical opinion of that. And it just seems time and time again that Africa is in a stagnation, and that stagnation is tied to systems, racial capital systems that want to keep it stagnant. Now, of course, outside of those systems, which I'll go into more detail next week, Africa will surmount this. So that's my concise answer.
Thank you. Thank you, Sister Portia. We'll come back to that. I think we had started some analysis in terms of the news, global news analysis. We did one where Brother Kwame also did the balance. And now that I think I might be up now to task again, we'll be always working on that. Because as Brother Kwame said, ours is maybe to answer the three key questions, which is always in our logo: the liberation, unification, development of Africa. So, whatever we try to come across, we ask ourselves that same question: how does this speak towards the unification, liberation, or development of Africa, whether positively or negatively? Sister Portia, thank you for finding time also to analyze such news across the globe, and you can feel free, yes, to post whatever links you can post with us. Thank you very much. So, Brother Kwame, over to you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you, brothers and sisters. I shall endeavor to do 20 minutes and no more. So just so you know, the slide, hold on, the slide I'm sharing with you, the slide I'm sharing with you, at my end, can be invisible to me. Although you've confirmed, I think Brother Ifo confirmed the last time that you can all see it very clearly because I'm sharing via Zoom. So because I'm sharing it, it's very clear to all of you. But yeah, so it's not clear at my end. So I'm struggling to read my own text basically on the slides. That's what I'm saying. Even if I send it to Brother Pigeon to share on my behalf, I will still have the same problem, which is why I didn't. So I will do my best. But anything I'll be saying will be a text from the screen. Yeah. The other point I want to make before I start is that introducing me as a chair of CSG can be confusing because the chair for today is Brother Pigeon. So I was telling Sister Portia earlier that I've changed my identity to the Kwame Nkrumah Trust because I think that is better for me as a director. And then Brother Pigeon remains the Consciencism Study Group when he organizes these meetings because, as you know, the laptop has been purchased by us all collectively for that role. So that should be our CSG identity. So going forward, if you introduce me as Brother Kwame, the Kwame Nkrumah Trust, I think that is fine without saying I'm also chair. Okay, with those two things out of the way, let me then thank our sister, Sister Portia, very dedicated sister, who always volunteering and taking on bigger and bigger roles. We thank her for today's geopolitical analysis, which as I indicated, should lead us to ask a question: is Africa in the same place going forward or going backwards? And from what I heard our sister say, Africa is still in the neo-colonial state, and nothing is happening. We are all asleep. Our leaders are asleep. They appear to be working, But when it comes to the direction of the continent, not much is happening. So we thank the sister for sharing that overall perspective with us. Now, let me then continue to my topic. So that is my name there on the left of the slide, Christian Agbodza. I used to just call myself Kwame Agbodza, and then I stopped because another Kwame Agbodza came on the scene and his identity was being confused with mine. He's a member of the governing party in Ghana. And so I stopped using Kwame Agbodza and I moved to Christian Agbodza so that there isn't confusion. He's now the Rhodes Minister in the current government. Basically, some would say using my name, using my identity, but that's a different question. But I just thought I would make that clear. So Christian Agbodza, the Kwame Nkrumah Trust. The topic for today is youth education and future leadership. So that is it. That is Africa's map on the screen. And then the next map on the screen next to it is a golden one, which is the blueprint vision, which, as you know, our position is that we must reframe the contexts of Africa from 55 fragmented neo-colonial states to a single united African nation. We don't have an African nation yet. It is our vision, our hope that there will be an African state one day. Whether it will happen in our lifetime or not, I don't know. Africans don't seem to be working on the most important things. Not that it's unique to us. There is Mensa everywhere. But we are, I think, suggesting that the AU organs must serve as direct instruments of indigenous nations, with states acting solely as servants and trustees of the collective will. And this then takes me to two doctrines that I think Africa has to understand. The first one is the Hegelian doctrine, and the second one is the public trust doctrine. Now, the Hegelian doctrine, which you are all familiar with, but you may not know that is a name, says that if you find oil in Namibia, and that oil is on the land of a particular organic and indigenous nation, somehow that oil belongs to the neo-colonial state. That is preposterous. But that is what the doctrine says. So you can see there are 4 boxes on the Hegelian doctrine: the absolute state ownership. Then we have fragmented implementation, which in our case means that we have 55 separate states. I mean, I always say this is complete nonsense, but it kind of makes sense to those who are in leadership. Yeah, same population as China, one central government. Africa has 55. Now, how that makes sense to anyone on that continent, I don't know. But somehow it makes sense. So we have 55 neo-colonial states, and the state is the owner. It's as if the state owns us. I mean, think about it. How can the state own the nation that was there before it was invented? Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. But I just want you to be familiar with that, what's called Hegelian doctrine. Then there is the public trust doctrine, which is our argument that far from the state owning anything, it should rather be in a fiduciary stewardship. In other words, it is a steward of what the organic nations own, rather than the owner of it. That the indigenous and organic nations of Africa must still own Africa. Yeah. But the neo-colonial states can be stewards of those resources on our behalf as the owners of Africa. And who are the owners of Africa? They are the organic nations, the indigenous and organic nations. What do I mean by that? I mean the Ewe nation, the Luo nation, the Nama nation, the Zulu nation, the Nguni nation, the Yoruba nation, the Mandika nation. You can go on and on. These nations are the owners of Africa. Let's just get that clarity. So when we talk about united Africa, we're not talking about a united neo-colonial states. What we mean is the indigenous and organic nations coming to a continental agreement, which we are suggesting should happen at some point when we hold a constitutional conference. So the state should serve as a servant, not our master. Currently, the state serves as our master, telling us what to do, killing us if we say we don't like something and we go on the streets and just exercise our democratic rights. This state will just come and start shooting us. What kind of nonsense is that? This has to stop. So the state, it can only stop if the state is seen by Africans, including our leaders, as servants and trustees, and not our masters. They are not our masters. They can never be. They pretend to be, and they frighten us with their police force and their guns and their military, which actually are our military. Anyway, my next slide is my personal, you might say this is my copyright. That's not how I put it. This is my being a mathematics educator. This is how I am suggesting that we look at these things, and that any policy of the continent, any policy of the African Union should be seen in terms of this formula at the top, that the outcome, T plus N, means T is today and N could be tomorrow, or 10 years time or 20 years time, whatever, is equal to outcome. The outcome is what is the situation today, plus sigma. Sigma, those signs means that the proportional sign stands for effectiveness, so we call it the effectiveness coefficient, and that's what that means. And so if the policy never works, for instance, that means that is 0. If it works, it could be 0.1, 0.2, etc., etc. The delta XJ stand for the policy levers. I'll explain that in the next slide. But the variables are basically like the ingredients. So if you want to cook, if you're cooking something, the ingredients are the variables, and then so you mix them and then you prepare the food, So the XJ would be how effective your ingredients are, when you're cooking the food. And then plus outcome T is where you started from, plus what you have done, and their effectiveness will tell us what will happen tomorrow. And then I then have what I call the 3-tiered anatomy. The first is level 3. And that basically means the documents of the African Union. Level 2 is the state level, the neo-colonial state. That's all that means. And then level 1 is the ordinary people, or what is happening on the ground. So look at it this way. There are 3 levels in terms of youth, the topic today. Youth education and future leadership. The argument is that there is the ordinary lives of African youth. That's level 1. Level 2 is what the new colonial states do or are doing. And then the 3rd level is what the African Union says. So that's what that means. I hope that is clear. If not, I can always explain more. I use this to desensitize us from the fear of mathematics. So we should not be afraid, because it's just a tool like any other tool. Then there is the baseline, what's called the outcome T. So the baseline basically is what is the current situation in Africa. And the current situation in Africa, I have identified, I think three main ones. Give me a moment. I'm trying to, as I said, I'm having difficulty reading the screen. So give me a moment to yeah, right. So yeah, so the first situation we have in terms of our youth, in terms of the youth situation, is that sorry, I'm trying to read what I've sorry, my screen is giving me problems. But anyway, yes. So there are 30 million children and youth currently not in school. They're unschooled across Africa. 30 million, that's almost like a whole nation, yeah? It's like an entire state. So an entire state in Nigeria, which is a federal state. Some states, I think, will be 30 million or more or less. It's like a whole country is basically unschooled, meaning they haven't been to school. 60% of our youth, yeah, are unemployed. So proportion of continental unemployment accounted for by the youth is 60%. Yeah, South Africa alone is we are hearing about 40-something%. So we can understand why they are not happy with what is happening. And then 41% of youth, in terms of youth and adult illiteracy rate, crippling participation in the knowledge economy, it's 41%. I mean, this is serious, isn't it? Now, in terms of, so this is the situation currently. Now, in terms of the institutions responsible for changing things at the continental level, there is the African Union Commission and its Education, Science, Technology, and Innovation document. And you can see they are tasked with continental coordination, but they lack operational enforcement. Then we have the Pan-African Parliament, which is a legislative organ designed for citizen participation and law harmonization. But currently it's operating without any binding legislative authority. It can pass laws, but the laws do not have any effect in any African country unless they are adopted. Then the third mechanism institutionally is the African Peer Review Mechanism, which is an autonomous entity monitoring state performance, providing diagnostics without mechanisms for enforcement. So you can see there that the AUC, no operational enforcement. PAP, no legislative authority. APRM, no mechanism for enforcement. That's the African Union level. Yeah. So, and yet, look at what the AU is suggesting we do in order to transform the life of our youth, their education, and their future leadership. Now, you will agree with me that with the kind of statistics we have just looked at, 30 million unschooled, 60% unemployed, 41% illiterate, the knowledge economy, you can imagine that it means that what the African Union is suggesting is the way forward. And you can see there are 1, 2, 3, and 4. So X subscript 1 stands for the vocational and educational training. That's what TVET means. So the African Union is suggesting that we revitalize the vocational educational training. Secondly, they are asking the African continent to do STEM revolution. And then thirdly, they are asking that we harmonize qualifications across the entire continent so that Africans can move freely from one place to the other in terms of their qualifications. And then finally, fourthly, they're asking for digital appropriation, which means that our children should be able to have the digital skills. So if you look at TVET revitalization, they are asking for expanding technical and vocational education and training beyond its current marginal 3 to 6%. Can you see how serious this is? There are only 3 to 6% of technical and vocational education in Africa. Africans who are involved are only 3 to 6%. This is serious, brothers and sisters. Now, when it comes to STEM, they had a program that came to an end in 2024, but it's meant to engineer industrialization. Again, that is what they are saying, but not much is happening. Harmonization of qualifications, that hasn't happened as far as I know. It's meant to happen and so on. So these are the 4 things that the African Union is saying that if we do, then our children, the youth, will be in a position to provide leadership for the continent. Now, what do we find? So this is my audit finding when I looked at what the policy is saying and what is happening on the ground. According to my finding, the AU is doing its job. Yeah, it has. The AU has it has all these nice documents. Yeah, it has a strategic mandate, has all these nice documents. But, and that's the structural mismatch. There's a profound mechanical failure exists between the AU's vast strategic mandate and its lack of operational jurisdiction at level 1. So the AU's documents are not making any impact at the level of our young people. And then secondly, there is a level 2 vacuum. Yeah, the sovereignty obstacle. In the African youth are finding that there is no single empowered continental unit with the authority to enforce variables across the 55 fragmented states. And our new colonial states remain wary of proposals affecting sovereignty, treating unified mandates as optional. So the empirical proof of the vacuum is that despite the urgent mandate of the continental framework on youth, peace, and security, only Nigeria and DRC apparently have developed the required national action plans back in 2024. Only 2 countries out of 55. So what is the result of that? Responsibility devolves into a fragmented division of labor, abandoning constituents to uncoordinated, failing national institutions. So our youth are not getting what they need to be in future leadership. The African Union has the documents. There's a big vacuum in the middle because our new colonial states are just not interested. And that's the problem. So what is my conclusion? My conclusion is that if you look at it from the point of view of mathematics, it's like having a nice formula for cooking food. Let me use food as an example. You have a nice formula for cooking food, at the food tech department or food tech faculty in the school has all this nice, wonderful formula. The children go to the school, they go to classes, but then they don't learn anything. They don't learn nothing. They don't learn anything about how to cook. So they leave the class not knowing how to cook because the classroom is not equipped to teach them how to cook. Yeah, and those responsible, the principal, the deputy principal, the safeguarding lead, all those guys are all fast asleep. In fact, maybe they don't even care about the life and happiness of the children that is under their care. So that's what I call the scholastic trap. Yeah, tremendous energy spent refining equations through workshops and producing complex indices like Raka and Miller, which are regional. These are regional, reports, and they never reach the factory floor, the rangeland, or the classroom. So we have basically brilliant AU levers, which is XJ. Because there's no implementation, that is 0. So the effectiveness proportionality, the proportionality sign is 0. Therefore, nothing is happening. So what we have is an institutional time bomb. Yeah, that's what we have. So the mathematical reality. So as long as neo-colonial states utilize the Hegelian doctrine to act as absolute owners rather than trustees, they override community stewardship. The structural blockade permanently reduces the effectiveness coefficient to 0. So my diagnosis was that the resulting neo-colonial failure, and this is the time bomb I'm referring to, creates an institutional time bomb of neglect for the continent's youth. Yeah, the blueprint remains a purely scholastic symbolic act, by which I mean the AU's documents, those blueprints are just symbolic. And so there's a time bomb because Africa's population is growing, and at some point there will be something will happen because our youth will not take it. Yeah, we saw it in Ghana in 1979. I believe it was 79. Was it 79? Yeah, when our children were shouting, "Let the blood flow." This is on record. This is not me saying it. This is on record. The nation was shouting, "Let the blood flow." They wanted leaders killed, shot. This happened in Ghana in 1979 because they had enough. And our neo-colonial institutions are sitting on a time bomb. So what are the next steps? My suggestion, led by our own brother Welcome, is that we, civil society, must do 3 things. We must accept collective ownership, which means that we must demand the neo-colonial states immediately to transition to fiduciary trustees so that we can legally enforce the public trust doctrine over state ownership. The diamonds belong to us. The golds are ours. The forests belong to us. They don't belong to the state, the neo-colonial state. And the state doesn't care. Okay, it doesn't care about our well-being and the well-being of our youth. So we have to ask civil society. Then 2, the African Union, in a way, has provided the data for us. Why don't we weaponize them as monitoring tools and hold the neo-colonial states to account, civil society? Then 3, action 3, let us reframe the advocacy. Yeah, let us mobilize the indigenous and organic nations to bypass the vacuum that is there, because the neo-colonial states will never act in our interest. So we have to mobilize the organic and indigenous nations that were there and have been there since the creation of this planet. Let us call on them to take on their responsibility and reclaim their role so that the vacuum that is at level 2, the practitioner vacuum that the neo-colonial states will never play, that our organic and indigenous nations will play that role so that we can cease petitioning these 55 fragmented mandates because they won't listen to us, and reframe all, this is the advocacy, we must reframe all political and educational advocacy around a united Africa, where the African Union, which in a way is crying for us, civil society, to act, so that the African Union organs are engineered to be direct instruments of the people's collective will, so that we can transform AU data stories and indices, example, the State of African Youth Report, from passive academic literature resting on shelves at civil society into active legal evidence, and use these metrics in regional courts to prosecute state violations of communal rights. Thank you.
Brother Kwame?
Thank you. I finished.
Thank you. Thank you very much. for that in-depth analysis. And I think the wake-up calls are very important for us, as you have highlighted them. Thank you so much. I'll play a less than a minute video on the element of education, but then I'll allow one of the youth in our midst. I am a youth still. Maybe they say youth is being youthful. When we argue about the age, some people will say they are still youths. Whether they are 60s, 80s, they are youth because they're youthful. Well, when you talk of the international number of age in terms of who is a youth, I can maybe call myself a youth in that age bracket. And there's one of us here, Horus Otieno, who is also around 17 years, I think 18, getting 18. He might be, I will allow him maybe 5 minutes just to talk before we open up. But I'll play a very short video on the role of education and how unprepared we are as a continent. Then after that, I'll allow Horus maybe 5 minutes. And then we open up with questions for 15. Then we just have a general conversation. So I won't do a presentation, but probably I'll have this less than a minute video to show us just how are we preparing the next generation in terms of the leadership of the continent, not only political, and how is our education failing us in this. So let me just play this short video. He's one of the content creators in Kenya called Crazy Kena, and he's comparing how we are doing this in the continent vis-a-vis what's going on outside the continent. And let me check if I think this is the video. Let me check if it can play. Yeah, so I'll play this video. Just start it so that you check it.
Think like engineers. Check. 5 p.m. The class will meet at 5 p.m. A grasshopper has 3 main body parts: the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. Now, let's go to grasshopper farming in India. Metamorphosis rock, igneous rock, and sedimentary rocks. They were found in Mesopotamia during agrarian revolution. Sawa? Yes. From the proposer side.
For me, education is better than money because with education you can get money, but with money you can't get education.
Hey. Money guy, cross the floor. I am.
That is the video. It's a very short one, but I hope you got something there. So that's what I wanted to play. He's one of the content creators in Kenya. And basically was trying to compare was trying to send some serious message in a comedy format. Having said that, allow Brother Horus, are you around? Please, just for 5 minutes, if you can share something on the topic on the youth.
Okay, thank you, Senior Comrade P. Actually, I'm very glad to be part of CSG. Though I've not been here for long, but I'm just grateful that there is such a platform on the continent. Because I think when you look at the demographics, or maybe when you analyze the situation very well, you find out that in the near future, let me say from around 2030, there's going to be a great change in the leadership dimension of our continent, whereby I think, or according to my analysis, I am coerced to believe that there will be a change whereby more of the youth will join the politics, more of the youth will be in the political space, the leadership space to lead us, other than these people who have been in the government ever since we got independence, and they're still holding the position. So I think it's going to be revolutionary. But also now the biggest thing is they are not prepared. They lack the vision, or maybe maybe they have the vision, but they lack the political willing, political will to do it. And I appreciate the efforts that such discussions are making, because I'm very sure that everyone is reaching out there to talk to youth, people like me, or even people who are more older than me, just to sensitize them on what you can achieve and togetherness on what you can achieve. Although I know at times we've failed, at times it's been difficult. It's always difficult to do this, but at least we can say that it can be done, because some countries are doing it. For instance, I've been following on Senegal. I've been following on Botswana, and I think I see some hope somewhere. Although now the big thing is the people. Most of our populations lack the will. Most of our population is still chasing dopamine. Yeah, I met a quote one day that said that in the past men used to go to war, and then the author was wondering, what are men doing nowadays? And then men are just vibing. And I think Rwanda's president recently in a meeting also addressed the same. He was telling the Rwandese youth to stop chasing vibes and create something that will create those vibes. So I think there's much that needs to be done. And I've seen that's not to say that there's nothing being done, because I've seen institutions like the Pan African Institution by PLO. I've seen the Aladdin Institution by Lynn Ngugi and many other institutions that are being started to sensitize the African youth. Only that I think they've come up late. It's I think it's late, but I also think it's early. So what I could say is that let us just double our efforts. Let us reach down to more youths, because I think the mistakes that the past generation made, it's only because there was that lack of sensitization as these people grew up. But when there's an extent of enlightenment among a few of us, when a few of us are this aware, I think they can create awareness, and then we can make it really big, we can make it really sound. So it's more of getting out, it's more of getting to the ground and getting things done than continuing with the talk, because we've made stories, we've done everything, and I can see a number of people out there on social media and everything trying to tell the African stories and everything, all the things that we wish could be done. But then also, I think in the same moment, some may be distorted, and I'm always of the view that I think there need to be some kind of, how should I call it? I think all those who are telling African stories, they should sit together and then make it more organized, because there are many different versions, and then there are many people getting confused along the way. There are many conspiracies arising from the same, and I think it might get up spoiling what you view as the Pan-African struggle. It might veer the Pan-African struggle from its main goal into something else, because I think also there are some other intentions, or rather some other personalities being grown in the same field. Like for instance, the individualistic nature, it's kind of growing too fast, and when that sense of just feeling for your own, the lack of Ubuntu grows beyond the revolutionary force of Ubuntu, I think it poses a great threat. Once the society accepts it, once the youth at this moment accepts that Ubuntu is not the way, then when they are grown, when they are that old, to, let me say, to vote, to make decisions for a community, for a country, it will be difficult to convince them. But when it's done this early, they will realize it. They won't be like this generation whereby by during their time they didn't know this. Now they are old. Now they are realizing that, oh, that was bad. So I think it's just an early step that we should take. And I appreciate the mentoring. I appreciate what I'm learning, and I'm just seeing a path I can follow. I'm seeing a future, and I'm realizing that for anyone who wishes to grow, for any leader, you must learn a path. You must have a blueprint of where you are going. You must know which road are you following. So, and I think I have the right way. I'm on the right path, and I think all I need to know is to be present. All I need to know is to be willing to learn and to be willing to contribute to everything that I wish to create. And I'll always be grateful to be part of this community. And I'll always be there to back out and bring more members here. Thank you.
No, thank you, Brother Horus. I'll just speak maybe for 4 minutes maximum or 5, but to paint a picture on my fellow young people in the continent. And when we talk about youth, we talk about youth as early as either age 1, some can call them adults or the children. But let me just paint a rough picture in the continent today and maybe in Kenya context. Now, majority of youth between the age of 20 to 30 are, of course, out of school today in most of the continent part, especially due to the age of education. So from age 18, you expect most of the people have ever finished their second level of education, their secondary, we call it high school education. And by age around 22, 23, they are either done with their university or college or tertiary education. And disparity is coming in terms of education because most of the African governments, and as Brother Kwame talking about the percentage of illiteracy, most of the African governments do not consider education as their primary responsibility. Of course, most of budgets across the continent still will indicate that education receive the big chunk of budget. But for example, in Kenya here, education sector as well has now been fully controlled by private sectors. So we have private schools, and the rich in the continent are preparing their kids for the best schools and best education. But the poor who cannot afford that best schools are left to hang on public schools that the government don't care about. So there are 2 generations or 1 generation that's coming up in 2 far ends. The continent in the next 20 years will produce some smart, whether they call themselves smart, young people went for international schools, used either choppers to go to schools or either use private schooling system, while there's a category of children who might have not enjoyed this privilege. This discrimination and inequality is going to affect the next generation. Now, the generation of my generation, probably the Gen Zs, who majority of them are now out of school, some of them, they have education that they were required to have. They either spend college or university, their years there. Their parents invested with the hope that education could then result to automatic job. They come out here, they realize that there's no job being created by government. In Kenyan context, for example, now we are being exported. So we are being sent out to Arab to go do the housework. And I know some of you have seen how that has also turned out, where our sisters are being subjected to some punitive environments to just work out there as either house girls or such other jobs. And the government is happy that it's exporting labor and that labor will come back and build the continent. Some are now going as far as possible. Some of us have now moved, especially young people, into technical skills. So we have many young people who are either plumbers, electricians, who are either welders, mechanicals, who are either carpenters, and they're succeeding in that line. But most of those young people went in the mainstream side, doctors, teachers, accountants, business, whatever. We have in Kenya, for example, somebody even with a master's with no job, and they have a master degree, no employment. Many people with degrees that do not even work what they studied, and some are out there doing some other things. So there's a frustration. There's a generation that is frustrated and is feeling to be betrayed by the system. There's a generation that is very vulnerable, that they cannot afford food, and yet they have also to have family. Some are now avoiding even having family. So you see them either single ladies or single gents. They don't want to have relationship. They don't want to commit in family, but they want to party. So they are out there either partying, either watching Netflix, or either enjoying those luxury of lives, watching series, football, and the rest, so that they can then at least massage their pain. That's a generation in this continent today. This generation is too frustrated, but very courageous, as you saw in the Gen Z revolution in Kenya, but also very informed. So as Brother Kwame also pointed out, there's a time-ticking bomb of a generation in the continent who are the potential of the continent but are not being used properly, and they might revolve to destroy the continent if not given space to build the continent. And I think the conversation the entire continent need to have is what you call the intergenerational conversation. That there's a generation that is coming up that want to get into space and actually showcase what they have. Just today, it was being on the news that they have hacked the president's website and system. And this generation hacked everything. They are IT gurus. They are good. They are doing, in fact, online jobs. They are the people doing online writing for white kids there out there in Europe, and they earn from here. So they do for them masters, their education, their exams. Those white kids somewhere out there even succeed in their exams using the brains of the blacks who are out here doing everything else so that they can survive. So there's a need for this generation also to fit in. The leadership of the continent is not ready for the young generation to get into the leadership. There are so many age limits across other countries on how you become a president, be a member of parliament. The politics of the continent is too much monetized that the young people cannot afford. So the young people are left, they don't have political space, they don't have job space, and yet they think that they have the tools, they have the resources, they have the innovation, they have the ideas to serve the continent. But the continent is not giving them space. They are pushed to business. Business as well is not working enough for them. The environment is not favorable. They are not having capital. So there's a lot of confusion in this generation. But the generation is eager to serve the continent. The generation is calling for an opportunity and support to enable it. It's not an intergenerational war. It's a conversation and tradition that I think the older generation must get the younger generation so that together we can have a prosperous Africa. Discipline need to be instilled. Patience and some other few things need to be instilled in this generation. They still need to be guided, but the youth of Africa are ready under the potential of Africa. If Africa use it well, it can develop. If Africa don't take advantage of its youth, it might be the disaster for this continent. So that's what I wanted to say. Back to you, Brother Kwame, if there's anything you want to add from your react first of all from the few things you have added to your presentation, then you allow members now to react fully on all this conversation. Brother Kwame?
Yes. So, Chair, and can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Can you hear me okay? Yeah.
I can hear you.
Yeah. No questions have been put directly to me, so I will therefore not say anything in terms of answering a question. But if you are asking me to comment on what yourself and Brother Horus have said, I would say that I agree with both of you. We can, as the discussion evolves, look at specifics. Yeah. So thank you for now. I will later share some statistics that are really worrying, and if you ask me, it is not that the older generation, in a way, don't care. I mean, I am a father, yeah, and some people in this meeting are my children's age, yeah, and I do care about our children. The problem is that the neo-colonial state is the problem. You see, when fish swim in a poisoned lake, yeah, they will die, yeah, because the lake itself is poisoned. It doesn't matter how strong, how powerful, how caring the mother or the father fish is in that lake. If the lake is poisoned because of neo-colonial mining, the fish will die. So we are all operating within a neo-colonial state. So the problem is not the youth or the older generation. The problem is the neo-colonial state. So let us direct our attention, our anger to the real problem. Thank you. I'll pause there. Later on, I can share some statistics.
Thank you, Brother
Kwame. That are very worrying. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Kwame. Now I'll be taking 4 contributions. It can be a question, it can be a contribution. Because of time, I'll have to combine. But I'll be reading, I'll go through every list of attendance. At least you have maximum of 3 minutes to put in what you want to put in. If it's a question, indicate it's a question. If it's a comment, indicate it's a comment. But I'll go in the order of the list of members attending here. So you have at least 3 minutes. I'll take 4 people. Maybe go back if there was a question, we go to answering, we get to the next 4 people so that probably I can be able to manage the entire list that is with us here. So in my list, of course, I see Sister Portia. You will have 3 minutes, then I'll go to Sister Ida in that order, then I'll go to Abimbolu. Then I'll end with Sister Amma in the order of the list that I have. Those are the first 4 that will start. So let me start with Sister Portia.
Brother Pigman, I don't think I have anything to say, so you could pass it on to someone else. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to Sister Portia.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to kindly please I want to show this image. Okay, now I'll turn off my screen. Okay, this is from April 2026. Well, firstly, thank you, Brother Kwame, for saying that last point about the fish in the pond. Very good analogy. I contend that that's what I, among many, many more here in CSG, have been saying weekly, monthly, and ongoing. It was an excellent example. Unfortunately, about the poison is not good, but the description was spot on. So here now here is an image from April 2026, and it says which Africa's debt load, which countries have borrowed heavily and which ones are carrying a lighter burden. And then it breaks it down. You see there on your left, red is greater than 70%, 50 to 70%, and then less than 50. When I look at this, I don't look so much at the debt because I comprehend how that debt stuff has been working and trying to keep us Akibalanese trapped. I look at what is the money being spent on. There was a case, I'm not going to mention the country's name, but there was a case of a country recently getting a loan. And where is that money going to? Where is that money going to? So Brother Kwame is saying 30 million youth, and he is so correctly to say that is a caution there. Any type of principle with Africa in terms of going back to our traditional ways, and let me stop sharing my screen, you cannot forget the youth. So 30 million, it's a worrying figure. And then the other point that I wanted to share is I saw this movie, The Interpreter. I watched it again because when I first watched it, it was before I had started doing my volunteer work at the United Nations level. And then I watched it again just to see if now I would have tasted the Kool-Aid. And do you know, in that movie, the sole person of the movie, it looked to me like an erasure of indigenous African people, because the lead person was saying that they were what? They were white African. And I'll be cautious here so someone doesn't think that I'm trying to be racist. But it was just so mind-boggling that the person who was the problem in this fictional movie was this African leader who had once been liberated, and then now this white South African was going to murder him and tell him, read what you say, just erasing any type in the movie of how a person became white African, or any way that leader who once was a freedom fighter now has been caught up in the pond. So this stuff is calculated. And it goes to my last point about psychological. I said this in another group. I know we always say you got to get your mind right. Get your mind right. Psychological, we are arguably dealing with a lot of trauma. So much so, and I'll just go to me, we don't see ourselves as the greatness we are. For so many times in my life, I didn't know that we were so great, because all I learned psychologically was how we were not. And so now presently in my consciousness, I'm trying to get out of that thing of seeing us as if we are missing, as if we don't amount to anything, as if we're disposable. That's what the pond does.
The term is
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Brother Abi Bolu, let's go ahead. 2 to 3 minutes maximum. If you have anything to contribute to the topic, question or comment. Brother Bimboli. And I think it's been a while seeing you.
Okay. Yeah, it's really been a while. Yeah, it's quite refreshing getting back to the house after a long time absence. So I tender my apology, just as I also extend my greetings to everybody.
Apology is not accepted.
Okay, maybe I'll find. I would still think more of African way of tendering the apology, because in Africa, apology has to be accepted, especially when the person tendering it has genuinely realized that he's at fault. Having said that, it's like I said, it's good to be back, and I'm also I quite share the sentiment that Brother Kwame made in the presentation. We have two issues: ownership of our resources, or ownership of our nation, or our ability to take agency of our lives, which the neo-colonial states has completely eroded us of. Now, on the other side, we need to build a future. We have realized that there are mistakes up to this point, and we are filled with trepidation that things can't go on like this, or else there will be more calamity. So we need to train our youth. We need to educate them. We need to give them the best of education. And unfortunately, we do not even, because of our poor system of ownership, resource management, and the overschooling that some of us have been given, because we have truly not been educated. We have been overschooled. That's where we do not see, like last person just said, we do not see any value in ourselves. We have been brainwashed to denigrate ourselves. So we are not sure of ourselves. We do not have that mindset of being equal to any other person from any other corner of the globe. We feel inferior. So we are therefore at a crossroad. How do we raise our children so that they will not be in the same pathetic situation we find ourselves? And until we understand what education is, I must also say it's so regretful that even this our meeting today, we are still doing it in a foreign language. That is one key issue, as culture, language is a major stakeholder in culture. And if all our crying we're still communicating in foreign languages, man, we've lost a big chunk of what we are supposed to be doing. And that is unfortunate, because if each of us started speaking our local dialects, we won't understand ourselves, our local language. So I don't want to get spat up with the situation, but I feel that as much as we are pushing, maybe we'll keep pushing, but the key is we need to take agency of our life. We need to consciously educate our future, our children differently, so that they can have the right attitude as against what we are having now. And they can also be able to confidently face challenges and be innovative enough to get at par with their peers across the globe. So that's really the comment. I will leave it at that. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Brother Bimbol. I think Brother Kwame, based on the gestures, has actually also accepted your apologies, and I think our members who heard you before have actually also accepted your apologies.
Apologies accepted. It's not.
And I'm happy to still see how strong you are in culture, and I think what you are mentioning is very important. And I've said this before, that the next generation is very important for us to concentrate on them. As much as we try to work on the current, but we must also have a back plan to prepare the future. And that is on our next generation. So in that order, I'll go on then to Sister Amma and Jaranunaki, and then Sister Tapuwa. In that order, Sister Amma, please come in if you are able, comment or any question. Jaranunaki, and then I'll get to Sister Tapuwa. Sister Amma.
Hello, good evening. Very good presentations, which I think we will need to continually return to. So 2 questions which came to my mind as the presentations were being given were, 1, what is the purpose of education? And 2, what is the purpose of employment? And I think we need to ask those questions in order to understand what's happening and also what needs to happen. Because the purpose of education under capitalism, or education stroke employment under capitalism, including the neo-colonial systems we have in Africa, is different to the purpose of education stroke employment under the type of system way of organizing that we aspire to in Africa. And just to remind us that just over 50 years ago, in 76, African school children in South Africa, not the only school children who have protested, but stood up and protested because of the a move to enshrine a type of education given to them which was not about purposefully developing them as from and preparing them for adulthood and preparing them to not only contribute but also receive from society. The education, the purpose of it was to train and develop them as labor for the apartheid system. And I'm highlighting that because that to me is a crystal clear way of us understanding that the purpose of education as is rolled out in Africa presently is not about meeting the needs of the majority of people. The reason why so many of our children are not educated is because the system only needs so many of our children to be educated to a certain level, and what they do is it creams off certain what they will consider to be the cream of the crop. So my mother, born in Ghana, was selected to go to Achimota because colonialists went into the village and did tests and pulled out those who were considered to be the brightest. My mother's mother, my grandmother, was illiterate. She and others were selected and went to Achimota. That isn't a system which is saying let's educate and give access to education for everybody, every child to the same level so that they can shine and so that they can develop their skills and abilities so that they can make a contribution to the society as well as benefit from society. Universal education in Britain is less than 100 years old. And initially, children were being educated to work in kind of like the bulk of children were being educated to work in sort of like the in industrial sector. They had apprenticeships, etc., etc. Now, what the capitalist system does to fool us, and in neocolonialism, it will open up and close the doors to education and education establishments as and when labour demands increase and change and develop. So I'll end there, but let us look at what the purpose of education is, what the purpose of employment is, because I think one of the biggest fallacies which is peddled is this fallacy of business, because business under capitalism is about maximizing profits and selling things for as much money as you can get, which means that sometimes the things you sell out to people aren't even things that people need, but we're convinced that we need them. So I'll end there, but I just think it's a very good presentation, but we need to clearly think about what the purposes of education and employment under the type of Africa that we wish to build, and not thinking that education and literacy is very important, but not thinking that education is just about what happens in the type of education system that we have, quite frankly, inherited from those who were the colonialists in our continent. Thank you very much. Excuse me for coughing.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Sister Amma. I think the cough don't want you to say it, but you said it already. So thank you very much for that. I think I have just shared a slide of what I was to present, of course, on education, as you're saying, of course. What should be the objective of the education? What should be the focus of the curriculum? And what should be the view of the student? And what should be our desired output? This is according to what I was trying to work on as part of what I was to present. But thank you for those two questions. And we will come back to anybody maybe to, or everybody maybe to try to answer on the chat if that's okay. What do you think is the purpose of education to you? And what do you think is the purpose or should be the purpose of employment to you as an individual? Feel free to engage us on that in the chat. To all of us, not specific person, all of us. Let's find time to maybe answer those key fundamental questions. General Nunaki, please come in for 3 minutes. General? Okay. Probably I'll come back to you, General, if you are able to speak. Let me get to Sister Tapuwa, please come in. Then after Sister Tapuwa, I'll be going to Brother Ifo. Then from Brother Ifo, I'll be going to, so Sister Tapuwa, Brother Ifo, then I'll get to Sister Shaza in that order, and then Brother Simon. So, Sister Tapuwa.
Yes, my brother.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Greetings, everyone, and thank you very much for the contributions that have been made so far. Some of the things that I'm going to say are just going to take a slightly different angle, but a lot of the things have already been said. I started off by looking at what education is, and because this is important, because education has always been part of humanity. We pass skills, we learn skills, we pass values and attitudes, whether you're literate or illiterate. So the education process itself does give people the ability to survive within their environment. And this is where the environments, particularly in the context of Africa, begin to change, because we've got pre-colonial environment, we've got colonial environment, we've got post-colonial and neo-colonial environment. And then we've got the environment that we are aspiring towards. So in pre-colonial environments, education was focused on adult roles, economic, social, psychological, so that an individual became a rounded person who fitted into the community in which they'd found themselves. With the coming of colonialism, the purpose changes, because the colonial master's purpose for educating us is extraction and exploitation. And therefore, they were engendering in us just sufficient knowledge for us to be spanners in the extraction, just sufficient skills, and particularly the values and attitudes that would make us accept the subjugation that we had, excuse me, been subjected to. It also made sure that is the attitude and values that we adopted. We dropped our own and we valued being white. We valued fitting into the white culture. We valued because we were rewarded. You were paid more. The greater you distance yourself from your own culture and adopted the foreign culture was rewarded. So now that we're into post-colonial Africa, where we have maintained that education system that was meant to subjugate us, that was meant for us to be the gatekeepers of perpetual exploitation. We found ourselves sustaining that. We found ourselves establishing private schools that continue to make our kids sit Cambridge exams, that continue to make our kids prepare for fitting into the Western society, which is why, for example, we're able to migrate and work in the UK and teach there. Because we have been attuned to making sure we support the system and support the master and forget about our own people and the people's needs. So the challenge then is, how do we convince a people who have been rewarded for distancing themselves from themselves? When we talk about youth and leadership, what do we mean when our youth is focused on going to America to learn, is focused on being as American as possible, is focused on being non-appreciative of our own culture? How do we go about making sure that we've got that return? And I think it starts with those people who have acquired that knowledge, who've been there, who come and say to them, it doesn't work. Particularly in the African context, but I'm also thinking of the Black children who are growing up in the West, in the diaspora. I struggle because I've had children in my extended family who are out there getting first class passes, but not getting anywhere. I remember going to an engineering workshop set up by Black engineers in Glasgow for all Black graduating engineers. And the kids were told, I went with my nephew, you don't expect to get work in the first 3 years. And some of you will never work as engineers because the system is such that they've designed for it for us to work in certain areas, health and any of the other menial jobs that they want supporting. So that, for example, here in Mutare, where I am, I was surprised to find a German school opening up the road. I had taken Zimbabwe to be English speaking. And then I went in and I said, German? Said, yes. We're recruiting a lot of Zimbabweans who are coming to work on cruise ships. So, as long as we are thinking of a united Africa, we can only make headway once we know where we're going and once we know the purpose. And for us, the purpose for our education is to change the attitudes and values, to change the mindset, because it is in the mind that everything begins. I mean, think of how America, particularly the medical field, is covered by Nigerians, by West Africans who are making enormous contribution to what has become the West. But we need to be able to move like India has moved. I know from my experience in the United Kingdom, a lot of the Indians who are and were in the United Kingdom were so frustrated they started going back to set up systems in India. This is why India was able to make the leap that it has made, because a lot of the people were going back and making a contribution. So that's the attitude. We've got the knowledge, we've got the skills, but we need to start working on our attitude and mindset. We need to be able to be like China. I was reading an article where China purposefully, to start with, embedded students within the West who would nefariously copy things and send them over for purposes of developing China with Chinese attitude. There's an article I was reading today that was saying China is only allowing Chinese students to go overseas to learn if it is complementary to the purposes for which they have set the direction of China. And for us, because we're still waiting for a united Africa, we need to start working with the minds of our children, the minds of the adults, the minds of anyone who can contribute to making Africa what we want it to be. So, yes, we have specific attitude, we have specific education, we've got the skills, we've got the mindset, we've got the capacity, but we need to change our mindset in order for our leadership to be appropriate for where we want Africa to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sister Tapuwa. I allowed you to go extra bit.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, let me get to Brother Ifo. We are almost, maybe in the next, so Brother Ifo from Brother Ifo is Sister Shaza. Brother Ifo, please come in. Can't hear Brother Ifo. Maybe he's having some technical issues. Brother Ifo, when you are able to come in, please let me know. You can raise your hand, then I'll give you an opportunity. Okay. Done that. Let me get to Sister Shaza. Sister Shaza. Then I'll get to
greetings. I don't really have much to add. I agree with most of what Tapuwa said. So yeah, I don't really have much to add to that.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Thank you, Sister Shaza, and pleasure to see you around. Thank you for finding time to join us as well today, Sister Shaza. Let's get to Elder Sam. Are you around, Elder?
Yes, Brother Pigeon.
No, Elder Sam, you are once a youth. We are youth today. So you can either claim to be youthful still. Please come in.
Thanks. Am I audible? Evening, everybody on the
Yeah, you're
platform.
audible. You're audible.
Thanks. I just want to start by making these quotations. If I end up in between without finishing my speech, I believe this is what I would have contributed. Some years ago, one leader in Africa, Robert Mangaliso Sobugwe, said, education to us means service to Africa. It must be the embodiment of our people's aspirations. He said, education is for increasing capacity to serve rather than just earning power. And he said, education requires identifying with the masses as harbingers of a new world order. But my input today really is to emphasize things that we always emphasize. Brother Kwame, again, an excellent presentation. And for me, you have said it. I don't know if many heard you on when you presented. When you came at the end, where you said it is for us to go and mobilize our people to do away with the neo-colonial state that is blocking our progress. I don't know if we heard you, but I heard you very loud and clear. And I'm saying we have done it even in the past. If we go back in the history of the CSG, they are classical, what I would call master classes like this one today. And if I go back to the nearest one, the one where we came about something that said we must abolish, we must replace, we must defend, and we must maintain. And there are several of those classes that if we can package, and they are well packaged and they are sent to us as individual members in our individual countries, then we can start that fire that will become a priority fire that is required. And I think this is the leadership that we will be doing to serve our people on the ground with whatever we are doing at this level. And I think for me, Sister Amma, I'm concluding. You said a very eloquent issue about the June 1976 uprising in South Africa. Guess what? 50 years down the line, the same circumstances that the youth of 76 were fighting against are still prevalent in South Africa. And when the president was observing the 50th anniversary, he said little that would bring the immortalizing of those heroes of 1976. So, spot on, Kwame, the leadership of today has failed us, and we need to take them down as quick as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Elder Sam. Thank you for that. Brother Simon Chibi, please come in. I'm trying to just finalize on my list as we then allow Brother Kwame to come in finally. Brother Simon, please come in. Then Brother Ifo, prepare to come in as well if you are still able. Brother Simon? Brother Simon from One Map Africa? Okay. Brother Ifo, please proceed. Brother Ifo, if you're now able.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Please proceed.
I am at an African festival, so it's perfect timing because it's not so loud. I will be brief just because before the music gets loud again. I agree with all that has been shared so far, talking about the need to fundamentally remember who we are and to teach our children who they really are, not who the colonials say that they are. Because oftentimes when they get involved in the colonial education, they end up, as was shared earlier, they end up learning how to extract. They don't learn the spirit of Ubuntu. They don't learn that the education should be in service of the population of the community. I remember in the early 60s and 70s, Nigeria used to sponsor people to go study abroad, to learn different things, and the objective of that was to come back and better the community. And now it seems like, one, the funding is not there, and secondly, people are learning to follow themselves and not necessarily the community. And that's those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Ifo. Thank you for that. Brother Simon, are you there? If not, then I'll go to Samsung. Who is Samsung, please? SM? Okay, Brother Mauli, please come in. Brother Mauli, come in briefly.
Okay. Yeah, greetings. Unfortunately I missed the presentation, but I think education, as Sister Amma and Sister Tapuwa said, every day even our parents are educating us. Every now and then, education is actually being issued to us. Now, as Sister Tapuwa was saying, which direction do we want to go as Africans? The AU stated that they have an agenda. The agenda must also meet with the UN agenda. Is that where the Africans really want to go? And does it also meet with our tradition or culture that we really want to pursue as people? I think that is where we should really tackle going forward. Because I was talking to some junior high students 4 days ago, and they were talking about some of the things that their parent does that they feel like, okay, their parents are actually, putting them down instead of, enlightening them and also make them experience things across, the world, since they have limited time to live as youth. So then the question is, which parenting do we actually go after for the children as education? That is also another issue. The parenting, the education starts from that side, and also start from the academia as well as the community. So all these things is something that we have to really look at a broader perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Maoli. Of course, as you've highlighted, AU will always have an agenda, and probably, and it will still continue to have an agenda. What you're interested in is the implementation gap. Yeah, Sister Portia is saying, please, somebody with Samsung SM, can you introduce yourself? I don't know if it's Windhoek, I'm not sure, but somebody with Samsung, it's not a new Samsung, Namidis. Please introduce yourself so that we can allow you to speak. Now, we have a new member, Thomas Abega. I'm probably referred by Brother Horus. Thomas, maybe a minute. I know it's your first time. Alester Thomas, can you introduce yourself? And if you can have a comment in maybe a minute or two.
Sure. Thank you, comrade, for this opportunity. And it's true, it's Horus, Brother Horus, who made me be here now. It's because we had an earlier conversation, and I thank you so much for allowing me to share something briefly. I will be very brief because it's my first time. I would like to say that I'm very privileged to be here. It's a good thing, really. It has been a while since I've been into these conversations or in a group, but then I still carry out some of these conversations as an individual, according to what I work on, all about Africa. And I'm glad because it's what all of us are discussing over here, because I think we Africans and Africa is a business, and it's good when you have these factions focused on making sure in one way or the other we are contributing to that Africa we want. I think the reason as to why many of us are focused about these discussions is that we believe there is somewhere we are not there and we have a potential of being there, and that is why people are engaged in these discussions, which are very crucial, uh, just to make sure that we go to the next step, which is possible. And that is why we say, as always, being Africans and Africa is a business, then at all time we purpose to have it in either way. I'd just like to comment on there's I came in and somebody was presenting, and there's a video you presented about Crazy Kena, the content creator. I saw that video, and I think I was to actually speak about it, but then I think I found myself fed out in a lot of things. But then it's very true in terms of from the angle of what really is really happening in the continent, and what we are supposed to be. Because if you look at look at our curriculum and everything, and compare with some of the things we are dreaming of, then I think it becomes a difficult state of or a very complicated point we are, because I think it will be very difficult for us to move to the place we want if our curriculum still is at that level. Because if you compare the other countries that we keep on speaking about and how they have developed, there's something they shifted. There is something they addressed really all the way from what we are offering in our schools as a continent. So I think that is also an area we really need to have much conversations about. I'll leave it at that point, but I want to say I'm grateful to be here, and I'm looking forward to engage in more conversations, because actually these are the things I do on a daily basis, and I'm very privileged to be here. Thank you so much, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Brother Kwame, the few young Kenyans are coming up. I think it's very impressive when also the younger generation is joining together in this conversation. So thank you very much for those who have contributed. Brother Glenn, I know you're the one with Samsung. I don't know if you still have an opportunity to share, but you almost end to the conversation and allow Brother Kwame to come in. But if you have something, you can just let us know in the chat. Brother Kwame, please proceed.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, all of you, for your contributions. I hope I'm audible. So, yeah, you've said a lot, and I can't respond to everything, even if I wanted to. But I want to, quite a few issues have come up which may need addressing, but we can't address them all in this session. So maybe another session we can address them. We try and keep our meetings to 2 hours because it's a long time on the internet and it's very expensive for some of us. But this slide I'm showing you, brothers and sisters, is the current situation on the continent. Yeah. And I'm sharing it. Brother Pigeon will share this recording so you can have a look at it more if you want. But the current situation is very serious. Okay. Some of the discussions are focused on the education that those who enter the education system receive. Yeah. So you are saying when they go, they don't receive the correct education. That is correct. But brothers and sisters, the problem is worse than that. Okay. Now look at the last statistics. 9.4%. Okay. Less than 10% of those who enter our primary school, go to universities. That is how serious this thing is. So it's good to be worrying about what they get when they get in there. The problem is not enough are getting in there. Now, when you look at technical vocational educational training, 3 to 6%. Do we understand what is happening, brothers and sisters? These statistics are serious. Do we understand what is going on? Now, if this goes forward in 100 years, Africa will still remain hewers of wood and drawers of water. Okay, so I am saying to us, and I'm echoing what Brother Sam picked from what I was saying. Yeah, that the time for talking is probably over. We need action as civil society. This is, look, out of 453 million youth between 50 and 35 in 2018, only about 6% have the skills. I mean, these may not even have to set up leading or world-class manufacturing industries on the continent. Brothers and sisters, what we are talking about is very serious. And Sister Amma drew our attention to the purpose of education. Yeah, because that's very important. The purpose of education for us, CSG, is that education must go to liberate, unify, and develop the continent. Ultimately, education must develop Africa for Africans by Africans. I mean, I don't know what else you want higher than that. Africans get the education so they can develop Africa for Africans, and they will develop by themselves. So, Brother Pigeon, as chair, I want to just draw the importance. I don't think we quite, listening to us, we've all said good, nice things, but I don't think presenting that. I don't think we quite understand the seriousness of the situation. Yeah, I'm not convinced that that is clear to us. Secondly, it doesn't come across to me that my point that we need a civil society, yeah, instead of finding fault with the African Union, which is not wrong because they have a lot of faults, but at least they have the documents that we can use to beat the neo-colonial states over the head, even that we're not even using it. All we're doing is talking, and then we talk, and then we talk. Anyway, Chair, I thank the sister who got CSU to be doing this Saturday sessions. I don't want to mention her name again. You don't like mention her name, but the purpose of today, yeah, is not that we don't know the problems. We know the problems, maybe not the extent. The purpose of today is to say that this is the African Union's position on this thing. Yeah, when we want an African nation, don't we? So why don't we use the tools that we have now to fight for what we want? Yeah, I mean, that for me is the central message. So what I want to hear from us and the young people here, thank you for coming. We need you to start producing TikTok short 30 seconds videos from our hundreds of recordings. We have hundreds of recordings. Brother Pigeon, I can go on and on. Let me pause there. Thank you.
No, thank you, Brother Kwame. I think we need to get deep into this data and probably break it down to more specific countries and see the comparative analysis, if that's possible. And I know the young people with me here, they will now join me and help me do some of these tasks. Because when data is presented, data inform a lot of action. Sometimes we speak as you're saying, and also that the AU has documents. I think we need to mobilize to help implementation. Because as you're saying, yes, they might be having their loopholes and their issues, but then will we just sit back and say we blame Africa did not unite because AU did not unite us? There's a responsibility we must play as ever civil societies, as ever individuals. So I think it's Africa for all of us, not Africa for AU, not Africa for an individual country. It's Africa for all of us, and therefore all of us must do what they can, where we can, instead of waiting for also the blame game. So thank you very much, Brother Kwame, for that.
Yeah, sorry, brother Pigeon. Just one last statistics. Do we all realize that the African countries are meant to spend 5% of their budget on education? A lot of them don't. They don't. They don't spend just 5% of their budget. They don't do that. And so we have a lot of work to do to get them to do that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Brother Kwame. And just to notify members, I've been working on data from, of course, under our chair, Brother Kwame. Brother Kwame is the director of Kwame Nkrumah Trust. He's the chair of the Philosophy Thursday class. The chair of Unification class is Brother Windhoek, and we'll be getting the chair for the Pan-African Reading Club. But Brother Kwame now is actually our overall leaders from the director of Kwame Nkrumah Trust. We are doing data in terms of contacts, and I think we have contact details of various countries, State House, their presidents. We have collected data so far for all parliaments in the continent. And I think, Brother Kwame, part of advocacy will be doing is now to start doing the writing and doing the follow-up and pushing so that they do what we want. And that's why we are collecting all this data. We have data for universities, we're putting them in place. We have data for all that we want, because now we need to move to the advocacy level.
Advocacy, that's it.
We realize there's a gap. We write up, we follow up. If it is AU, we have the data of all AU institutions. We are going to that level of now start doing what it takes, because when we see the problem like this, we don't just analyze the problem and just sit back. No, we have to do what we can. And I think now we are ready to do what we can, because we are now collecting all the necessary data. So, Elder Sam, it's past our time, but as an elder, I'll give you maybe something to say. Elder? Elder Sam?
Yes, Brother Pigeon? Hello?
Yeah.
Yes, Elder Sam, your hand is up.
It may have been a legacy hunt. Yeah, it's a legacy hunt.
Okay, so comrades, Brother Kwame, you'll be sharing the topic for next week as I'm trying to pass this forward.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
comrades, as Brother Kwame has said, and as a Consciencism Study Group, we have done a lot of analysis. We study our philosophy. we conduct our Saturday Unification meeting, we realize the gap, and the gap is coming in from our conversation. We are not just speaking, as Brother Kwame is saying, we are organizing, and we are getting in touch with the relevant points so that we can start exerting the pressure. We have contacts of most of people from most of African countries, and wherever you are, know very well that you'll be our representative. So when we start pushing, if it is pushing in Namibia, Brother Windhoek must help us push Namibia. If it is pushing in Zimbabwe, as we do the follow-up letters, we request also our sister to help us do that, because we must follow both virtually and physically. We must push, because nothing seems to be coming out of just free thing. So we need to put the effort in, and we are ready for that. Now, this Saturday, we'll be looking at mass, and the next Saturday, we're looking at mass movements and popular power. Mass movements and popular power. Yeah, so that's where we are getting. And the intention of that presentation is to assess the liberation. So I think that need to be very clear that we are looking at the mass movement and popular power as a tool to help us in the liberation. As Brother Kwame has said, our sessions revolve around unification, economics, development, and liberation of Africa. And Sister Portia has actually offered to present on the same date. So we look forward to that. If you wish to do something on the same, we don't always block you from doing that. Just notify us in advance that you are going to do something, and let's know if you have a presentation, let us know. But of course, you'll not miss an opportunity. So you'll have an opportunity to share and also speak on this. We are working, and I'll be working with the young people who are now coming in, and thanks to Brother Horus bringing the younger generation in. And I request us to bring our younger generation across our countries as well, so that they can be part of this conversation, so that together we can now have the intergenerational dialogue, where both the young and the old sit together to discuss the future and sit together to think about action. Now, all our recording for the last week, I think they're now on the YouTube channel. I was doing the upload of the last week. It was yesterday or yesterday but one. So the last week recording are already on our YouTube channel. The viewership is very limited. We'll still think around on how we work on that. And then the Monday, we continue the Pan-African Reading Club. Thursday, we go on with our philosophy. And then Saturday, we'll go to the topic I've shared. We are reorganizing and restructuring. So you see Brother Kwame coming in, the Kwame Nkrumah Trust. I think it should be very important to us that the Kwame Nkrumah Trust is the mother body, and Consciencism Study Group is a program under Kwame Nkrumah Trust. The Unification of Africa that was inspired is also a program here, and the Pan-African Reading Club is a program. We also have resources like the library, our YouTube channel on all our recordings, and other projects we are thinking of to bring on board. So we are also looking forward to go physical to meet these young people in their universities and start having this conversation physically, or even in the street physically, so that we can then inspire more people. The gospel of Christ was not only discussed virtually, maybe there was no technology, but it's now in our rooms and bedrooms and the corridors. The gospel of Pan-African must also go to the lowest part possible and reach the masses the best place possible. Having said that, once again, permit me to thank you all for your support. Once again, just to put this on record, we have now procured a new laptop, Lenovo X1 Yoga, and it's courtesy of the support from all our members who have contributed to this. And I'm happy that I'm now able to attend meetings, and I will not fail to open meetings in time due to technological issues. So thank you very much for your continued support, and we look forward to more support and more actions together. Bye-bye for now. Back to you, Brother Kwame.